think it's recording.
It's recording, is it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Today is Thursday, June
I know the
28th.
year.
June 28th.
No, July.
July 28th.
Close.
Close. And this is the Hyatt residence.
28.
All right, let me begin, Sammy. I'm going to try to shed some light on a period of history that all the normal people in this room lived through, the 30s and 40s, all the normal people, 70, 80, and 90-year-old. The others, it's really history. To us, it's something we lived through. And what I'm going to be doing is to bring a prism to the 30s and 40s. And through that prism, you'll see my input, my personal conduct, anecdotes, and I like to call that the salt and pepper of history. You're not going to read this in a history book or in the newspapers. Certainly not the New York Times.
No.
The fact of the matter is, I'm neither a historian nor a sociologist. I'm just a guy who walks around with his eyes and his heart wide open. And that's all you have to do to see life as it really is. With that, we're going to start. There was an especially unique aspect to the flood of millions of immigrants from Eastern Europe, almost all Jewish, coming to our shores through Castle Garden and Ellis Island around the turn of the century. And that was the Jewish commitment to the cause of social justice, particularly as it played out with civil rights. While it is true that much has been written about the struggles of African Americans with their civil rights and the role, if any, Jews played in that struggle, I think I can bring some fresh, personal insights to bear on a couple of the scenarios. So let us begin by shedding some light on the most important matter, which in my opinion has been given short shrift by historians and social commentators, and that is the right of a defendant to a trial by a jury of his peers, and the role one lone Jewish immigrant played in that matter. One man alone. First articulated in the Magna Carta, and then memorialized in our Bill of Rights through the Sixth Amendment, this right, the right to a trial with a jury of your peers, has become a central plank in the foundations of liberty among the English-speaking peoples of the world, and this singular right was put to the test in America during the infamous Scottsboro Boys case in the early to mid-30s in Alabama courts. Anyone remember it?
Yeah.
Scottsboro Boys.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll remind you. In 1931, nine Southern African American youths were indicted and convicted of rape and battery. Enter Samuel Leibowitz, a Jewish lawyer from New York who was born in Romania in 1893 and brought to America by his immigrant parents in 1897, serving pro bono. He never charged anyone anything. From 1931 through 1937, his victory in the case was attained through the Supreme Court decision of 1935 in Norris versus Alabama, which held that Negroes in Alabama were excluded from serving on juries and all the convictions were overturned. This was the first time that this nefarious racist practice was dragged screaming into the sunlight, and from that point on, America was the better for it. Then state after state had similar cases. So America was better, not perfect, but better for sure. The next milepost for African Americans marching up the path to racial equality occurred in Washington, D.C., on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on Easter Sunday, April 9th, 1939. That's where soprano Marian Anderson, an African American, sang to an audience of 75,000 after she had been refused permission to appear in concert at Constitution Hall by the DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution. This was the largest social protest gathering in Washington until another great African American, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., held his Million Man March decades later on October 16, 1963. Incidentally, Eleanor Roosevelt, who was at the DAR, resigned from the DAR the day that they turned Marian Anderson down. Marian Anderson's convoluted path to the Lincoln Memorial began when she signed on with impresario Sol Yurok. Name familiar to anyone?
Yeah.
Sol Yurok?
Yeah.
He brought the Bolshoi Ballet, he brought Arthur Rubinstein, Van Cliburn.
Yeah.
Sol Yurok, born in the Ukraine in 1888, Yurok was a year older than my father and came to the United States in 1906. In their youth, and their paths crossed early and often at Brooklyn's Labor Lyceum in the 1920s, where both of them became featured speakers. Some years later, Yurok hired my older sister Lillian as his personal secretary. You didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
Entering this Jewish social consciousness mix was Eleanor Roosevelt, who cut her social awareness teeth as a volunteer social worker at the turn of the century, teaching Jewish children dance and exercise at settlement houses on the Lower East Side. I bet you didn't know that.
Yeah, I knew that. No, I didn't.
Well, you read too much, Molly. She met my father there, Eleanor Roosevelt, and helped him in his work with the children of the Patterson Silk Mill strike, 1913. And 20-odd years later, as First Lady of the country, she invited Miss Anderson to sing at the White House. So we had a perfect storm of activists waiting in the wings when Walter White, a black man of the NAACP, bristled at the DAR not allowing a Negro, Marian Anderson, to perform at Constitution Hall. Yurok pounced, as did Eleanor Roosevelt, and in short order, the Secretary of the Interior, Harold L. Ickes, gave permission for Miss Anderson to sing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and a new chapter in African Americans' quest for racial equality was opened. Now, if you spend 2 lifetimes or 10 lifetimes trying to find out in notes and diaries how they picked the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Eastern